I would request everyone to please put yourself on a mute mode, Ajay ji. Okay. So, last couple of things to do. So once again, very good morning to all of you. We are live and we are starting our discussion. Okay. So today's topic is Section 44AB, Section 44AD, and Section 44ADA. How they work independently and how they interact with each other as far as income tax is concerned. And if God permits, I will try my best to cover the entire uh, tax audit provisions, tax audit report, clause by clause in detail uh, in the coming time period. For today, we'll have discussion over next 30 to 40 minutes on the sections which I just highlighted. I will try my best to. So let me start with sharing my presentation. So these are some relevant sections which we must get understanding. We may not be covering all of them, but yes, these are all important sections. 44AB, which talks about the tax audit. Then we have 44AD, 44ADA. These are all presumptive sections. 44AD, 44ADA, 44AE, or we can call them special sections which deal with computation in certain circumstances. So if anyone is going for 44AD, ADA, then rest of the provision of the act as far as computation, they are not applicable. And these provisions are in themselves complete computational provisions. Then we have 44B, 44BB, 44BBA, and 44BBB. So in business and profession, the most important thing which I understand that if you are involved in business or profession, or it may be business and profession, then you may be required to carry out tax audit as per section 44AB. So I am of the personal view that, in order to understand, being most of us who are attending this session live on a Zoom or a YouTube, most of us are professional. And if we are able to understand the meaning of profession, we would be able to carve out that when the tax audit pertaining to profession is applicable, and in balance scenario, we can say the tax audit relating to business would be applicable. So in next few slides, I would try to differentiate between the business and profession, because the way forward, if we talk about various sections, specifically 44AB, 44AD, and 44ADA, they are applicable based on whether you are in business or whether you are in profession. So there is a very old judgment by the Apex Court, which is a landmark judgment in case of CIT versus Mohandas. This Ram Kripal Tirath is not there. I think it got edited by mistake. So it is the Apex Court judgment in case of Manmohan Das, wherein the Apex Court observed whether a particular activity can be classified as business or profession will depend on the facts and circumstances of each case. The expression profession involves the idea of an occupation requiring purely intellectual skill or manual skill controlled by the intellectual skill of the operator, as distinguished from an operation which is substantially the production or sale or arrangement for the production or sale of commodities. So what this judgment basically wants to say, that if somebody is involved, if somebody is doing something through its intellectual capacity, through the skill set or through the knowledge, then such person can be called as a professional or a profession. Whereas when it comes to the business, the differentiating factor is in business, you are trying to produce something, you are trying to sell something. But when it comes to the profession, we are using the intellectual capacity, we are using our brain, we are using the knowledge that we have, we are using the experience that we have, and what we are indeed selling is the knowledge, experience, or that skill. Whereas when it comes to the business, what you are selling, you may be using your intellectual skills or capabilities, but what you are selling is some commodity. This is what basically Apex Court observed in case of Manmohan Das. Then we have Australian Council of Professions, which talked about profession. It says a profession is a disciplined group of individuals who adhere to ethical standards and who hold themselves out as and are accepted by the public as possessing special knowledge and skills in a widely recognized body of learning derived from research, education, and training at a high level, and who are prepared to apply this knowledge and exercise these skills in the interest of others. So I think the last line in my view is very important, that the one who is involved in profession is applying his knowledge and exercising the skill in the interest of others. A businessman may also be working in the interest of other, but what primarily a professional is doing is applying his knowledge and exercising the skill. So more or less in line with what Apex Court observed in the previous case, in the previous slide, in the case of Manmohan Das. Now we further move on to see there is another definition or meaning available on the website of Corporate Finance Institute. What it says, the term professional refers to anyone who earns their living from performing an activity that requires a certain level of education, skill, or training. There is typically a required standard of competency, knowledge, or education that must be demonstrated, often in the form of exam or credential, as well as adhering to codes of conduct and ethical standard. So code of conduct and ethical standard may be there, may not be there, but in all the three definitions that we have seen so far, everyone is talking about some knowledge, some skill, some training, some experience. So that basically drives the profession. Again, in a very old judgment of UK, I think the court observed a profession in the present use of language involves the idea of an occupation requiring either purely intellectual skill or of manual skill controlled, as in painting and sculpture, or surgery by the intellectual skill of the operator, as distinguished from an occupation which is substantially the production or sale or arrangements for the production or scale of commodities. The line of demarcation may vary from time to time. So again, what the court is saying, that profession, in profession, someone is using some intellectual skill, some capabilities to provide services, to serve others. So the differentiating factor, or I will say, if the case comes to us and say whether we are into business or profession, then we need to see what is the deriving factor, what he's selling, whether he's selling goods, commodity, or whether he's selling his own skills, experience, what he's selling. So if he's selling his skill, knowledge, experience, then the person is, one can say that he belongs to the profession. And the provision relating to tax audit, the provision of tax audit relating to the profession would be applicable on such person. If we go to our own act, Income Tax Act, it says section 2, subsection 36 says profession includes vocation. So vocation is the way we live, the politicians, the spiritual leaders, that is not their profession, but that is the way they are living. So it is a vocation. So vocation is also included in the definition of profession. And then we have some specified professions in section 44AA1, which says legal, medical, engineering, or architectural profession, or the profession of accountancy, or technical consultancy, or interior decoration, or any other profession as is notified by the board. So there could be a big gamut of profession, there could be a big gamut of professional, big galaxy of professionals. But as far as 44AA is concerned, it is, in comparison to the whole galaxy, it is kind of a planet, or, wherein there are few specified professions are listed. So one may be involved in the profession, but that profession may not be the specified profession. For example, let's say, uh, teachers are there, they are providing tuitions, they are providing home tuitions to student, or they have their own institute wherein the students are coming and they are giving teachings to them, they are tutoring to them. So again, that what the teachers are doing, they are running that show through their intellectual capabilities. So certainly one can say that is the profession. But that profession is not the listed profession. It is not the notified profession under section 44AA1. So why I am highlighting this? Because, the provision relating to profession and the provision relating to notified profession are different. So we need to be clear whether, if when we are talking about the tax audit and in respect of profession, so that profession is a normal profession, or whether that profession is a notified profession or not. Further, through, the board has notified following professions: authorized representative, the one who appears in the court; company secretary; film artist, actors, cameraman, director, including an assistant director; a music director, including an assistant music director; an art director, including an assistant art director; a dance director, including an assistant dance director; singer, story writer, a screenplay writer, a dialogue writer, editor, lyricist, and dress designer, information technology. So all these are notified professions. So if somebody comes to you, or if you are a professional, I think the first point would be to find out whether you are, certainly you are a normal profession, but whether you are a notified profession under section 44 AA1 or not. So another question comes: can company carry out profession? So many of us, chartered accountants, or maybe the lawyers, or maybe the doctors, or maybe the teachers, they start doing the services in the format of a company. So the court observed, Delhi Tribunal in particular, observed that for a person to be engaged in a profession, personal skill is necessary. A company, being an artificial person, cannot be said to possess any personal skills. A company, being an artificial person, does not have a mind or a body and therefore cannot be engaged in any profession. It can neither have an intellectual skill or any manual skill. We are also of the view that even taking a broader and more comprehensive meaning of the term profession, one cannot extend the same to the case of an incorporated company as being capable of carrying out a profession. The skill involved in carrying out professional activity is predominantly mental or intellectual rather than physical or manual. So basically, the court has rejected the idea that company can carry out the profession. And not only company, if you read this, they say an artificial person cannot said to be possess any personal skill. So not only company, rather any artificial person, until as specifically allowed in the law, cannot carry out a profession. So we need to find out, one may say that, this company is a company of professionals, they are providing a lot of consultancy. But being that is a company, being that is an artificial person, that company does not have a mind. And if that company does not have a mind, it cannot be called professional. And if he is not professional, it cannot be called that company is carrying out the profession. So a person working in a company may be professional, but company is not professional. And if company is not professional, it cannot carry out a profession. So as far as companies are concerned, most likely they will not fall in the definition of profession, and we will see them as a business. Even if they are rendering a service, even if they are rendering a high-end service, then also, the activity of a company would be called as a, business. So Atulji is asking a question: can HUF carry on a profession? Sir, in my view, how HUF, HUF is a deemed structure under the Income Tax Act, and HUF again does not have a mind. It's a Hindu undivided family wherein one could be a professional, another could be a contractor, and one could be an housewife. So, in my humble view, I personally feel, I can check and get back on this based on some case laws. But apparently, I feel HUF should not be, allowed. But let's see, what as we'll proceed, what 44 ADA has to say on this, because 44 ADA also mentions about the professional. And if you read ADA, it says being an individual partnership firm other than limited liability partnership firm as defined under N of subsection 1 of section 2 of the LLP who is resident in India. So 44 ADA also talks about individual and LLP.
गौरव जी, why I'm asking is मेरे पास एक मैटर आया है, पिछले 11 साल से HUF मेडिकल प्रोफेशन में असेस हो रही है। HUF को जो करता है, इज ए डॉक्टर वो प्रैक्टिस करता है, HUF में रिटर्न बन, और इट इज बीइंग एक्सेप्टेड।
Sir, I think the certificate of practice has been given to the doctor and not to the HUF. So if he is earning income in his own individual capacity, I'm not sure, how the income is getting added to, the HUF's income. So I think one needs to study on this, but apparently, based on the understanding that I have, until there is some specific case law which I am not aware, I am of the view that HUF should not be considered as profession.
मैंने भी बहुत चेक किया है, मुझे भी कहीं कोई केस लॉ नहीं है।
The logic also does not support. See what happens, why partnership firms are allowed, because there would be two partners, who are professional and they are working together. But in HUF, HUF one gets by birth. So even if somebody is not professional, then also he can run a HUF. And in HUF, there can be various persons. There can be a doctor, there can be a contractor, there can be a housewife. So, and let's say the income is also earned by housewife, then what would be the stand? So we would be taking it as a profession. I think I doubt, because let's say
Gaurav ji.
Anji sir.
Gaurav ji, on this, if I may add, if there is a profession which is under a recognized body, and if that recognized body does not recognize for, like in an HUF is not recognized either under the Chartered Accountants Act or by the Medical Council or by any other regulated body of professions, then in that case, it is a clear answer that the HUF cannot be treated as a profession.
Correct.
As a professional. That would be one of the tests to determine.
Thank you, Nawasi. I think I'm completely in agreement. This is what I was saying, that the certificate of practice is given to the doctor and not to the HUF. So,
and Gaurav, one more thing, HUF is only a fictitious body created under the income tax. It doesn't have any other sanctity otherwise.
Correct. So it does not have any sanctity otherwise, maybe under the contract law or any other law.
Mm-hmm.
So in my humble view, and what Nawazji also said, that until unless, somebody specifically allows HUF to carry out a profession, we should not see HUF as a professional, and thus the income earned by HUF should not be assessed as a professional income.
I agree.
So
thank you,
sir. So
Gaurav ji,
Anji, Naveen ji.
IPE, insolvency professional entity incorporated as company. In my opinion, it will get covered under profession.
So under the insolvency profession, they allow the registration in companies.
That's right.
So if they are allowing, I think they may be allowing with certain conditions.
मगर अगर नवाजी वाला लॉजिक अप्लाई किया जाए तो इन मेडिकल काउंसिल कंपनी को तो कभी मेंबर बनाएगी नहीं, सर्टिफिकेट प्रैक्टिस देगी नहीं.
तो कंपनी में तो सर जजमेंट भी है ना,
तो वो तो इन एनी केस नहीं हो सकता.
हाँ, इनका केस है नवीन जी का कि वेयर इन दी देयर इज सम बॉडी that recognizes company as insolvency professional. So if company is recognized as a insolvency professional, I think
you have to fall back on the notified professions then under 44AD.
So then apparently, you know, one can argue that being it is allowed to practice in the form of company, then, you know, one may argue that it is a profession or professional, but
yes,
whether it is a
no, Gaurav,
yes, Nawazji.
See,
there is no voice.
Nawazji, you want to say something? You are not audible.
I think some internet problem.
I would say like a insolvency professional entity, similarly registered valuer entity. The question could be whether they are notified professions or not.
So I think, see, Naveen ji, I feel, you know, probably one may need to go through the permission which is given to them, whether they can issue the opinion as a company. And if, you know, I'm of the view that in general, companies are not allowed to do the profession and they should not be treated as professional. But if there is some body, that body recognizes a particular structure as a registered structure under their own bandwidth, and they are giving that body to issue permission to issue a certificate and not to the individual. If that body gives the permission to issue that certificate to the to that structure and not to the individual, then probably, you know, one may argue that in such a format, that structure may be regarded as a professional. But I think we need to go
for sure registered valuer entity. The report is issued by the entity, not by the individual.
So apparently, I am of the view that it may be regarded as professional, but being it's a fact-specific case, probably one needs to go through the fact and then come back on it. But I am of the view some structure is allowed under some profession.
It's allowed under the statute.
Then yes, then it can be argued. Then it can be argued.
Right.
Now let me.
The only question could be, sorry, interrupting. The only question could be whether valuation as such is recognized profession under 44AD.
44ADA is different, but in general, see, when you are issuing valuation, you are using your own intellectual capabilities to value something, and you are not selling any goods or services. So in my humble opinion, valuation is a profession. But valuation is a notified profession or not, that can be seen, you know. So notified professions are legal, medical, engineering, architectural, profession of accountancy. That is, you know, what we do as a chartered accountant. Technical consultancy, interior decoration, and authorized representative, company secretaries, film artists, information technology. So apparently, valuation is a profession, but not a notified profession.
True, until unless it gets covered under technical services like insolvency, valuation. Okay, we leave that for separate discussion.
Now we are on tax audit of profession. Once we have freezed ourselves as a profession, then we have two sections, 44AB and 44ADA. When we go to 44AB, clause B says carrying on profession shall, if his gross receipt in profession exceed 50 lakh rupees in any previous year. So wherein the gross receipt is more than 50 lakh, in such a case, one needs to get the tax audit done. And 44AB start with any person. So 44AB is basically on a person. Then we have subclause D, which says carrying on the profession shall, if the profit and gains from the profession are deemed to be the profit and gains of such person under 44ADA, and he has claimed such income to be lower than the profit and gains so deemed. So we have two clauses basically for under 44AB. One is clause B, which is applicable in journal, which is a journal provision, I will say, applicable on profession, which simply says if the gross receipt in profession exceed 50 lakh, then you are covered under clause B and one needs to get the tax audit done. Clause D is via 44ADA that, we will see 44ADA, but it basically says if one has gone into 44ADA, then, and if he's not declaring profit mentions in 44ADA lower than the profit mentioned in 44ADA, then he will come to 44AB via clause D. So let's see what 44ADA says. It says, notwithstanding anything contained in section 28 to 43C, in case of an assessee being an individual or partnership firm. So if we see 44AB, it only talks about the profession and it does not talk about individual or partnership firm. But when we comes to 44ADA, it is specifically restricted to individuals or a partnership firm, and partnership firm other than the limited liability partnership firms. So what is only covered is individual, the one who is carrying out profession as an individual, or the one who is carrying out profession in a normal partnership firm, who is resident in India. So this 44ADA is not applicable on non-resident and is engaged in a profession referred to in subsection 1 of section 44AA. That is, it is a notified profession. So if you are involved in notified profession, if you are carrying out a notified profession and you are an individual or a partnership firm, then one can avail a 44ADA. And 44ADA is a sort of a mandate provision. It is not an optional sort of provision. So it starts with a mandate. Notwithstanding anything contained in section 28 to 43C, in case of an assessee being an individual or a partnership firm other than LLP, who is a resident in India and is engaged in the profession referred to in subsection 1 of section 44AA, and whose gross total receipt do not exceed 50 lakh rupees. So another threshold is your total receipt should be less than 50 lakh. A sum equal to 50% of the total gross receipt of the assessee in the previous year on account of such profession. So on account of such profession, so one may have couple of profession. For example, let's say I may be teaching and I may also be being the member of ICA doing the audit work. So that audit work becomes a notified profession, whereas teaching is not a notified profession. So for 44ADA, what needs to be seen, whether the fees which I am earning, that is the 50 lakh, is through that audit or accounting work, which is a notified. So I may have a scenario wherein, let's say my tuition income, assuming institute allows, assuming everything is okay. Let's say I am earning 10 lakh as my tuition income and 45 lakh as my professional receipt. So my total receipt goes to 55 lakh. So question comes whether I can avail 44ADA or not. So 44ADA says, such profession does not exceed 50 lakh in a previous year on account of such profession. So on account of such profession, my receipt is only 45 lakh, which is less than 50 lakh. So I will not take 10 lakh for 44ADA. I will only take the income earned through the notified profession, and income earned through notified profession is 45 lakh. So I can very well avail 44ADA. And what 44ADA further says, as the case may be a sum higher than aforesaid sum claimed to have been earned by the assessee, shall be deemed to be the profits and gains of such profession chargeable to tax under the head profit and gains of business or profession. So now whatever my total receipt is, 50% of the same or a some higher would be deemed to be my income. So let's say my actual income is more than the 50%. Let's say, my 45 lakh is my professional receipt and my actual income is 30 lakh. So my profits are 30 lakh, let's assume. So can I claim 50%? My profits can be deemed to be 50%, which is less than the actual? The answer is yes, because it is a mandate provision. It simply says 50% or higher, and that needs to be deemed in that it is as per the SSC. So you can always say that 45 lakh is my total receipt. 50% of the is 22.5. So my deemed income under section 44 ADA, which I am ready to offer for a tax, is 22.5 and not 30 lakh. Nobody can come and touch you. Even if they will come and touch you, the court decision is in your favor. So this is the beauty of 44 ADA. But let's say if I say no, my income should be treated less than 50% of the deemed income, then we have seen that we need to go to 44 AD for the audit. For the 10 lakh tuition income which I have earned, now the limit in 44 AB is 50 lakh. And while computing 50 lakh, because for 45 lakh I have opted for 44 AD, so the balance income left for 44 AB is only 10 lakh, which is less than 50 lakh. So 44 AB provisions again are not applicable on my 10 lakh income, which means the total income which I earned, which is 55 lakh, the whole income, I can get it without getting the tax audit, because 45 lakh I have offered in 44 ADA. The balance 10 lakh 44 AB would not be applicable because it is less than the threshold. So I am safely out from the tax audit net. There are few important points is engaged. If we read the word, if we read the law 44 ADA, it writes, in case of an SSC being an individual or partnership firm and is engaged in a profession. So engagement or word engaged is, something serious, which talks about continuity. So for example, let's say, I will take an example from a common life to make it understand. So let's say if I've gone and to meet someone, let's say a female, my girlfriend on a dating. So just one date does not mean that I'm engaged with that girl. Whereas, if I'm meeting regularly, if I'm giving time to them, regularly, then it becomes that I'm engaged in this. So for another example could be, if I have taken only a one session, I will not say that I'm engaged in taking session. So when I'm saying I'm engaged in taking session, I'm a bit regular in taking sessions. So similarly, not only your one professional receipt, rather there should be continuity. You are occupied in that work, in the sense you are doing regular that work, and then we will say, yes, you are engaged in carrying out a profession. Whose gross total receipt do not exceed 50 lakh rupees in a previous year, sum equal to 50% of the total gross receipt of the SSC in the previous year on account of such profession. I think this we have discussed, that total gross receipt. So the total gross receipt here, we will not take the total gross receipt of a person. We will, in my view, the word total gross receipt will derive color from this, which is total gross receipt of the SSC in the previous year on account of such profession. So such profession means, on account of such profession means notified profession. So if you have three professions, or if you are doing business also, let's say I am also into selling of books. So when I'm in selling of books is a business, because I'm not selling my intellectual capabilities, rather what I'm selling is books. So now I'm selling books, I'm doing tuition, and I'm also doing audit work. Audit work is a notified profession. Books is giving tuitions is a profession, but not notified profession. Selling books is a business. Now 44 ADA is applicable on the notified profession, which is my audit work which I'm doing. So what is my turnover, what is my gross receipt in the audit work becomes important for checking 44 ADA. and I will not see my income earned in by way of tuition or by way of business, I will not take it under 44ADA. Now, when I will go to the
what will be the position if a person is carrying out two types of professions?
two types of notified profession.
I am a chartered accountant. I am also author of books, and writers and authors are treated as notified professionals.
They are professionals, sir, but they are not notified professionals.
No, the authors who तो special notification board ने निकाली है ना, ये actors, screenwriters, story writers.
Film artist, cameraman, director, including assistant director, music director,
story writer, screenplay writer.
हाँ, तो story writer अगर आप हो, मतलब so it will take, story writer will take color from film artist. So one who is writing a story, let's say you are writing a story for films, तो पहले तो सर थोड़ा मुझे मौका दे देना उस मूवी में काम करने का.
I'm just taking practical aspect. Suppose I wrote a story and it is accepted by a film producer.
Correct. I'm coming to it, sir. Then now the word being such profession, we will see each profession separately. It's the word profession and not professions. Correct. So for both the profession, that is your both the notified profession, one being the writer of a movie and another being the chartered accountant. So in both the case, in my view, if you have income which is less than 50 lakh, you can claim the advantage of 44ADA if you wish to. Am I clear, sir?
Sir, because under the law, singular means plural also. Because it is not a business or profession. It is business or profession. So it could be a plural.
No, sir. Actually, 44ADA is qua profession. And each profession needs to be seen separately. So,
but you don't club both of them?
No, I will not club.
So each
I think institute guidance not also talks about qua profession.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Gaurav ji,
Naveen.
If a young chartered accountant starts practice, first year the total receipts are, let us say, 10 lakh rupees. The person makes P&L and the profit is 3 lakh, which is less than 50% of 10 lakh.
दोबारा बताइए sir, sorry.
Startup of new practice, first year the total receipts are 10 lakh. And when the person draws P&L, it's 3 lakh rupees, which is the profit, taxable profit, which is less than 50% of 10 lakh. Tax audit required, not required.
सर इसको करते हैं डिस्कस. ये आगे पॉइंट है मेरे पास, विल डिस्कस.
ठीक है. मैं
दो क्वेश्चन कवर कर लेता हूँ. एक निशांत का है. निशांत इज आस्किंग डज रिसीप्ट कवर अनबिल्ड रिसीप्ट्स टू? Unbilled receipts, whether Nishant you bill it or not, if they are unbilled means you have receipts, so technically you should add them. अगर आप उनको बताओगे तो ऐड करनी पड़ेगी, नहीं बताओगे तो कैसे ऐड करोगे?
I have a doubt. I'll tell you what. ये है कि suppose on 31st of March I received 2 lakh rupees from a client. तो और मैंने उसकी बिलिंग नहीं करी है. बिलिंग इन द सेंस आई हैवंट गिवन अ बिल टू हिम.
एडवांस है क्या है वो? एडवांस
है इन द सेंस ना.
एडवांस को आप हटा सकते हो.
हटा सकते हैं.
गौरव, इस पे डिपेंड करेगा व्हाट काइंड ऑफ सिस्टम ही इज मेंटेनिंग. रिसीट बेसिस या
एक्रूअल बेसिस? रिसीव्ड बेसिस है या आपका एक्रूअल बेसिस है?
दैट विल हैव टू बी डिसाइडेड.
करेक्ट.
बट isn't it necessary कि 50 लाख से नीचे अगर कोई प्रोफेशनल अपनी रिटर्न्स भर रहा है तो उसको कैश रिसीट बेसिस या ही दिखाना पड़ेगा या accrual basis कंपल्सरी होती है?
I think Atul ji, it is optional now. What do you want to opt?
But once you opt it, then it is decided.
Then it is decided.
And secondly, in this GST, if you register, then service render or to be rendered में भी GST आपको applicable हो जाएगा.
Okay sir. Okay.
Sorry, Gaurav ji, I was intruding.
No, sir. This is the benefit of discussion. We all will add value to it. What if actual income is more than the deemed income? This I have already discussed that, and I think a question bit tha Rahul ka. that if actual income is more than deemed income, then also there is no issue. So you can always say that 50% is what I'm offering, what I'm ready to offer under 44AD, and there are case laws which are in favor of the taxpayer. I think Nitin Saini maybe.
But Gaurav, when the law says deemed income be 50% or higher income offered by the assessee.
Offered by the assessee, na, sir.
अगर इनकी income ज़्यादा है, तो you will have to show that.
No, sir. If assessee wants to offer 50%, it's okay.
No, sir, no. If your income is more, then you have to offer it for taxation. You can't say मैं 50% में लेके चल रहा, because your bank will have more money. जिसके ऊपर पे बहुत case laws है. You have to offer more income.
Sir, as far as 44ADA is concerned, there are case laws which clearly mentions, and this is the objective of 44ADA. मतलब अगर ज़्यादा ही tax करना है, तो फिर 44ADA क्यों लाना है? There are case laws. When I will circulate, those who have registered on a Zoom, I will circulate this PPT via mail, and I will put up the case law.
ठीक है sir, ठीक है. Thank you.
मैं डाल दूंगा sir. Then 44ADA further says any deduction allowable under the provisions of section 30 to 38 shall, for the purpose of subsection 1, be deemed to have been already given full effect. To the no further deduction under those sections shall be allowed. The written down value of any asset used for the purposes of profession shall be deemed to have been calculated as if the assessee had claimed. This is important. Notwithstanding anything contained in the foregoing provision of the section, an assessee who claims that his profit and gains from the profession are lower than the profit and gains specified in subsection 1, and those total income exceeds the maximum amount which is not chargeable to tax. So Naveen ji, agar total income exceeds the maximum amount which is not chargeable to tax, then in that case shall be required to keep and maintain such books of accounts and other documents as required under the subsection 1 of 44AA, and get them audited and furnish a report of such audit as required under 44AB. Hanji Ritun bhai, please.
राम राम भैया.
राम राम भाई.
भैया एक ये क्वेरी है कि हम 44AD के अंदर जो अब नया सेक्शन आया था कि ऑडिट अगर आप AD से बाहर आते हो और ऑडिट करना पड़ेगा.
AD ना अभी हमने शुरू नहीं करा है. We are discussing ADA.
Okay.
इसके
AD
बाद
में कोई क्वेरी नहीं है. Sorry.
After this we'll come to AD.
Okay भैया.
So Rahul is asking a person not a doctor but runs dental practice through hired doctors. Will it be covered under section 44ADA or 44AD? Kind of tax planning not to show 50%, can it be done legally? Rahul, see, if he is not a doctor and if he is hiring doctor, so उसके पास कोई clinical structure है, कोई entity है जिसमें he is hiring doctors to provide the services. So I think what he is doing is the business and not the profession, because he is not the professional, and the one who is not a professional cannot do a profession. So he is not himself a dentist. He is hiring people. So he is rendering service through the professionals, and he has invested his capital and he is taking the risk. So he is acting as a businessman, and again there is a case law on this. So when you are acting as a passive professional, so in such case, even a passive professional is considered a businessman. So for example, let's say there is one doctor and now he builds up a team and the team is rendering services. His role is primarily to put up the capital. He is not involved in the profession. Rather, he is, with the help of the team doing everything. So now he is acting more as a businessman. So now he becomes a passive professional. So once somebody becomes a passive professional, then his structure would be considered as a business. And wherever the person himself is not a professional, I think I am of the view that he should be considered as a business man and not the professional, and accordingly it would be the business. Hope I am clear, Rahul. Now there is a question from Bipin. Sir, I have two questions. Whether separate account 44AD, we will come to it. Though for income purposes, whether separate account is required to be maintained for notified profession and eligible business. Though for income purposes, 44ADA is not chargeable, but what if case of assets more than income comes in future? Bipin, see, the law, if you are opting for 44 ADA, you are not required to carry out the tax audit and you are not required to maintain the books. But अगर आपकी देखिए practically speaking, अगर मेरा business है और मेरा profession भी है, तो मुझे अपनी convenience के लिए books maintain करनी पड़ेगी. बट जो मैंने एडीए में ऑप्ट कर लिया प्रोफेशन, उसमें मेरा टैक्स ऑडिट नहीं होगा. सो मेरा टैक्स ऑडिट वहीं होगा जहां पे आई एम नॉट ऑप्टिंग फॉर एडीए. नाउ लेट्स से इफ आई हैव ऑप्टेड फॉर 44 AD, I have not come to 44 AD. 44 AD is again a presumptive. So if somebody opts for presumptive taxation under, as far as business is concerned, under 44 AD, and as far as profession is concerned under 44 ADA, in my humble view, उन दोनों की रिसीप्ट्स कितनी है, एडी से कितनी रिसीप्ट्स है और एडीए से कितनी रिसीप्ट्स हैं, वो तो आपको बाइफरकेट करनी पड़ेंगी. आप उसमें खर्चे कौन से क्लेम कर रहे हैं, उन सब चीजों की जरूरत नहीं है. बट फ्रॉम द पर्सपेक्टिव ऑफ रिसीप्ट्स, यू शुड हैव बुक्स. आप ताकि प्रूव कर पाओ कि यार मेरी रिसीप्ट अंडर एडीए इज लेस देन 50 लाख and under ADs it is less than 2 crore. वहां तक के लिए तो आपको in my humble opinion books maintain करनी पड़ेगी. But उस पे depreciation कितना लेना है, expense कितना लेना है, because you have already opted for presumptive taxation, that will not go into question. So now
rule 6F को ignore कर सकते हैं इसमें?
Rule
maintenance books for a professional.
सर वो एक्ट में जब क्लियरली लिख दिया,
आपकी बुक्स वो मांग नहीं सकते हैं, बट रूल 6F तो उसमें कहने लगा कि 6F is not applicable. That is my humble opinion.
Maybe, but subsection 4, only mandates wherein one is not opting for ADA.
But आज मुझे कैसे पता लगा कि मेरे साल में 50 लाख 7 लाख होंगे कि नहीं? I don't know today. जैसे उन्होंने बोला कि 31 मार्च को 20 लाख का एडवांस आ गया, उसका क्या करें?
Sir, this what I'm saying कि for our own practice, for our own computation and everything, we must have accounts.
Yeah, for our own benefit also.
For our own benefit. This I agree. मतलब अगर मैं अपनी receipt को मेरे अगर जो taxation है, it is based on my receipt, तो receipt तो मेरी कभी भी कोई भी पूछ सकता है कि prove करो कि आपकी कितनी receipt है. बुक्स लेके आओ, बिल्स लेके आओ, है ना, वो सारी चीजें तो पूछी जा सकती हैं. तो अप टू दैट एक्सटेंट आई मस्ट हैव, एंड अदरवाइज आल्सो एज अ प्रैक्टिस मतलब वी शुड हैव, बट लॉ मैंडेट्स आर नॉट. आई थिंक आई एम स्लाइटली कंजर्वेटिव ऑन दैट.
चलिए मैं भी उसको स्टडी कर लूंगा. दूसरा जीएसटी की बड़ी प्रॉब्लम है ना. व्हेन आई रीच द थ्रेशोल्ड लिमिट फॉर एप्लीकेशन, हाउ विल आई नो इफ आई एम नॉट मेंटेनिंग द बुक्स?
We are talking under income taxes. GST is a separate gamut.
नहीं, but I'm saying भाई other compliances तो चाहिए ना.
Practically, what you're saying is absolutely correct.
Sir, I just have one more thing to discuss on what just sir said. Sir, does 44 AD and ADA override 44 AA?
This is an interesting point because I think you are asking this because 44. You are saying 44 AD overrides 44 AA.
Right.
Oh, so what is your view?
So my view is that 44 AA still applies. So if the limits over there, you breach those limits, then 44A2 says that you should maintain such books of accounts and other documents that may enable the assessing officer to make the assessment of total income. So my humble view is that even though we might not be required to furnish the particular expense bills and all those stuff, but we should have some minimum documentation available to justify whatever expense we are claiming, even under 44 ADA or AD.
I am in agreement with this.
Right.
So when I'm not claiming expense, so up to a certain extent we should have books, correct? We should have proper records also, but the question comes whether it is mandated or not under the law. So if the law certainly mandates up to a certain extent, because at least receipt, the government would like to see what is your total receipt and whether that receipt are proper or not.
I would differ because as sir rightly pointed out, the provision says that either 50% or such higher sum as is claimed by the assessee. But whether that claim is legible or not, that needs to be checked by the assessing officer, which will take shelter under 44AA.
No, it is deemed.
No, sir. Sir, let us just have a look on what the provision says. It says that who is engaged in profession 44A1 and whose total gross receipts do not exceed 50 lakhs, a sum equal to 50% in the previous year, or as the case may be, a sum higher than the aforesaid sum claimed to have been earned by the assessee. So, shall be deemed to be the income, correct. So, if the claim is incorrect, then obviously the claim will be verified.
So we have a court judgment on this. When I would be circulating the PPT, I would be mentioning the judgment name.
Okay. Okay.
Gaurav, 4AA does not say notwithstanding anything contained in any other section. It simply says the books are to be maintained.
I agree. I am construing through the help of subsection 4 of 44ADA. 44ADA specifically being a section in itself.
It's a deeming provision.
44ADA mandates the maintenance of books when I'm not opting for 44ADA or as per subsection 1. So I'm going by 44ADA. I'm not going on 44AA. I'm going by 44ADA. So I'm trying to interpret subsection 4. If subsection 4 is there and 44ADA comes later to 44AA. So being 44ADA in the scheme of Act come latest to 44ADA, and it mandates maintenance of books of accounts in specific case for a specified profession. I think then I would like to rate not overrate, I would like to rate 44ADA subsection 4 over 44AA subsection 1, which is a generic provision.
That I agree, because even the court says that deeming provisions have to be given priority.
So let's move, sir.
Right.
So the another debate comes, what all we need to include in gross receipt or total turnover. For this, I'm relying or placing faith on the IC exposure draft on tax audit, which has recently come up, and I think it's more or less in line with the earlier tax audit guidance note, except the updates which they have done. So the para 5.9 of the same says the term turnover to mean the aggregate amount for which sales are effected or services rendered by an enterprise. If GST or any tax is included in the sales price, no adjustment in respect thereof should be made for considering the quantum of the turnover. Trade discounts can be deducted from sales, but not the commission allowed to the third parties, because it will go to as an expense. If, however, GST or any other indirect tax recovered are credited separately to GST or other tax account, being separate accounts, the payment to the authority are debited in the same account, they would not be included in the turnover. So means, if I'm charging GST separately, putting it in a separate account, from there I'm debiting and crediting everything as far as GST is concerned, then GST will not form part of my total sales or total turnover or gross receipt. Otherwise, GST will become part of my gross receipt or total turnover. However, sale of scrap shown separately under the heading miscellaneous income will have to be included in turnover. 5.10, considering that the word sales, turnover, and gross receipts are commercial terms, they should be construed in accordance with the method of accounting regularly employed by the SSC. Section 145(1) provides that the income chargeable under the head profit and gains of business or profession or income from other sources should be computed in accordance with either cash or mercantile system. Abhi thodi der pehle we are discussing on the same. The method of accounting followed by the SSC is also relevant for determination of sales, turnover, or gross receipt in the light of above discussion. So broadly, this could be the list, and there could be, this is just an indicative list. We can have a more bigger list on this. What can deduct from the turnover or what not to be included in the turnover? Trade discounts like sales discount, turnover discount, sale return even if it belongs to the previous years, sale of fixed assets, GST or any other indirect tax recovered or credited separately, sale of investments like shares, debentures, etc., the value of goods securities sold on commission basis, grossing up differences in case of speculative transactions, interest remuneration received by partner from partnership firm. So the interest remuneration, or the which a partner receives, is not a turnover. So a common debate which comes up is, a partner withdrawing a salary from a partnership firm, let's say a chartered accountant, the remuneration which he is getting from a partnership firm, can he claim a benefit of 44 ADA on that remuneration? So the answer is no. Because that remuneration is not a receipt or gross receipt or total turnover of that person, and hence it will not fall under 44 ADA. Out of pocket expense received in advance and credited in a separate client's account and utilized for making payments for stamp duties, registration fees, counsel fees, traveling expense on behalf of the client. For section 44AB, turnover of presumptive business profession wherein taxpayer opts for the taxation of presumptive basis, again we need not include the same. Just one, this grossing up of differences in case of speculative transactions needs to be included in the turnover. I think this I need to correct. What can be included? Grossing up difference in case of speculative transaction. In case of delivery based transaction, total value of sale should be included. It will include all receipts, whether in cash or in kind, arising from carrying on the business, which will normally be accessible as a business income under the Act. The value of any benefit or perquisite, this is interesting, which is there in the exposure draft. The value of any benefit or perquisite, whether convertible into money or not, arising from business or the exercise of profession. Rental income, if the same, is accessible as business income. So now we have a 194R. So not only the receipts, if something is getting added as under 194R or 28.4, that will also become part of the turnover. But in that case, one should be able to prove that it is whether arising from profession or not, or is it simply a gift. So what would be the position vis-a-vis 28.4 is going to be interesting thing, and it may create doubt. So specifically, when it comes to reimbursement, I feel if anyone wants to claim the benefit of 50 lakh, and we have 44AB also, it talks about the tax audit, and if this reimbursements becomes the benefit or perquisite under 28.4 as per the new notification of the CBDT, then this will get added to the turnover. And if it is get added to the turnover, then because of the reimbursement which we are not considering, one may fall under tax audit net. So specifically, I will say for my fraternity, chartered accountant needs to be sure on how they will going to bill the reimbursement part. So ideally, as far as possible, try that your client pays the invoice on the name of client, and client pays for the your out of pocket expenses.
गौरव जी प्रैक्टिकली हो नहीं पाता है, प्रैक्टिकली हो नहीं पाता है वो. Say I have to travel to Bombay for a tribunal matter, तो मेरे को तो बुक कर देते टिकट हम खुद ही ऑनलाइन, क्लाइंट को बोलेंगे तो वो तो यार. एनीवेज दैट इज a gray area, calls for litigation.
Within digital signature service, if you are a digital signature service provider, or you are simply getting digital signature, so Bipin is asking a question. Providing digital signature service is common for all profession, whether it will be considered a receipt from profession. So Bipin, I am of the view that there can be two cases, that one is having a digital signature service as a business, he himself creating the digital signature and issuing the same, then issuing the digital signature service. Digital signature is not the notified profession, so it will not fall under 44 ADA. Second, it may be a case that, I am buying digital signature on behalf of the clients. So if I'm buying digital signature on behalf of the client and invoice comes on the name of the client, then it is a reimbursement which can be excluded from the gross receipt. But if that is not the case, then I think it may be treated as 28(4) wala matter, which may create a problem. Halaki guidance note specifically says कि if you have taken a money in advance and from the client account you are incurring the expense, then it should not be included. But still there could be a counter view from a 28(4) perspective. So my view, take an invoice on the name of the client. That would be a healthy approach. GST is part if you are, we have already discussed that if you are invoicing it separately, if you are invoiced so GST separately, you have a separate account for the GST, then GST is not, part. It should not be considered as part of the turnover. Nishant is asking, our partner earns remuneration which is greater than 50 lakh from his firm. Is he required to undergo a tax audit? So, we have just seen that the remuneration earned by a partner is not a gross receipt, and the audit is linked to the gross receipt. So if the remuneration which a partner is receiving is not a gross receipt, in my humble view, the tax audit would not be applicable, and I'm relying upon the judgment of Bombay High Court in the matter of Parizad Zorben, which is a recent matter, wherein the court said the interest remuneration received by a partner from a partnership firm is not a turnover. And this what the guidance note of ICI, the exposure draft on the tax audit also says the same thing. So now let me, with the permission of all of you, let me proceed, and then we can again stop for a questions later on. Now we are on 44AB. We have discussed in, I think in detail, various nuances related to tax audit of a profession. Now we are on a tax audit of a business. So we have 44AB, which says every person carrying on business shall, every person carrying on a business shall, if his total sales turnover or gross revenue, as the case may be, in business exceeds 1 crore rupee in any previous year, then tax audit is applicable. As far as the word gross receipt or turnover is, there we have already had a discussion on the same. Provided that in the case of a person whose aggregate of all amount received, including amount received for sales, turnover or gross receipts during the previous year in cash, does not exceed 5%, and again the expense does not exceed the 5%. In such a case, 1 crore would be read as a 10 crore. So if one is not into the profession, we can say that he is into the business, and if he's into the business, then the threshold limit as per 44AB is 1 crore vis-a-vis 10 crore. So 1 crore in normal circumstances and 10 crore when the cash payment expenses or the income is less than the 5%. It says provided further that for the purposes of this clause, the payment or receipt, as the case may be, by check drawn or a bank or bank draft which is not account pay, shall be deemed to be the payment or receipt, as the case may be, in cash. We have a rule 6AA, which lists down various modes which are considered as the online payment under this section. Then we have clause C. Clause C says, if you are involved in presumptive business 44AE, 44BB or 44BBA, and you are not declaring profit as required in that section, then you would come to 44AB and one needs to get the tax audit done. Then we have clause E, which says carrying on the business shall, if the provision of subsection 4 of section 44AD are applicable in his case and his income exceeds the maximum amount which is not chargeable to income tax in any previous year. So if somebody has somebody has not opted for 44AD, then he will come to clause E and he needs to get 44 audit done under 44A. These are normal provisions. AB says, provided that this section shall not apply to the person who declares profits and gains for the previous year in accordance with the provision of subsection 1 of section 44AD, that is 8% and 6%. We're going to see it right now shortly. And the turnover is less than 2 crore rupees. Provided further that this section shall not apply to the person who derives income from 44B, section 44BBA. It also says, that if your accounts are getting audited in any other account, then you are not required to get the audit done under 44AB. I'm coming to questions. Just give me a moment. We'll come to the questions and we'll have detailed discussion. Birup, let me complete AD and then we can, we'll wait for the questions. We'll take up the questions.
गौरव जी एक छोटा सा इसमें मेरा इशू है कि 44 if your accounts are audited under any other provisions, तो सेक्शन 44AB की कंप्लायंस तो फिर भी करनी पड़ती है ना?
हाँ सर, वो फॉर्म्स चेंज, मतलब वन इज द स्टेटमेंट तो देनी पड़ेगी हमें,
देनी पड़ेगी, उसमें कंप्लायंस भी पूरी देनी पड़ेगी वो सारी।
हाँ, तो फॉर्म चेंज हो जाता है, दैट वी विल डिस्कस कि फॉर्म्स में क्या है, वो आई हैव नॉट कवरिंग टुडे, इन द नेक्स्ट सेशन आई वुड कवर दैट इन डिटेल आल्सो।
ठीक है सर।
Specified date, we all know it's 1 month before the due date of return. Now we are on 44AD, which is very interesting, and there are issues 44AB vis-a-vis 44AD. So it starts with notwithstanding anything to the contrary contained in section 28 to 43C in the case of an eligible SSC engaged in eligible business. So as far as 44ADA is concerned, it talks about notified professionals, profession, whereas 44AD talks about eligible SSC engaged in eligible business, a sum equal to 8% of the total turnover or gross received. Turnover or gross received we have already discussed earlier, क्या include करना है, क्या include नहीं करना. Of the SSC in the previous year on account of such business, again the word if you see it is such business. So again it is qua business. So if you have more than one business and they are all eligible business, then you can apply 44AD for each business separately. Which means in one case you may show 50%, oh sorry, in one case you may show 8%, in another case you may show 6%, depending upon the applicability of the SSC in the previous year on account of such business, as the case may be, a sum higher than the aforesaid sum claimed to have been earned by the eligible SSC shall be deemed to be the profit and gains of such business chargeable to tax under the head profit and gains of business profession. Provided that this subsection shall have the effect as if for the words 8%, the word 6% had been substituted in respect of the amount of total turnover or gross received which is received by an account pay check or an account pay bank draft or use of electronic clearing system through bank account or through other such electronic mode as may be prescribed. We have already seen. Now, subsection 6 is important. That subsection 6 restricts the applicability of 44AD. And it says, notwithstanding anything contained, a person carrying on profession is not allowed to opt for 44AD. A person earning income in the nature of commission or brokerage. Now, the important thing, see, subsection 6 is qua person, whereas subsection 1 is qua business. So, if a person is into commission business as well as, let's say, a normal business, then possibly because of subsection 6, he may not be able to claim the benefit of 44AD. Because subsection 6 says if a person carrying on profession as referred to in subsection 1 of section 44AA. So if one is carrying out a profession, a person carrying on an income in the nature of commission or brokerage, a person carrying on any agency business, then in such a case 44AD, the benefit of 44AD would not be applicable. Who are eligible SSC? Individual HUF or a partnership firm are eligible SSC. Who are resident, so this section is applicable only on resident, but not a limited liability partnership. Further, it says who has not claimed deduction under section 10A, 10AA, 10B, 10BA. or deduction under any provision of chapter 6A under heading C, deduction in respect of certain incomes. Point number 2 was not there in case of ADA. And also, if you see, they have allowed HUF to carry out the business, but HUF word was missing, or the entity was missing when we were reading ADA regarding the partnership firm, regarding the profession. Eligible means any business except the business of plying, hiring, or leasing goods or carriage referred to in section 44AE, and whose total turnover or gross receipt in the previous year does not exceed an amount of 2 crores. These are the definition of eligible business. We have seen the eligible SSC. Now we can go back to 44AD subsection 1.
Gaurav जी, छोटा सा एक क्वेश्चन था मेरा इसमें. What is the logic of omitting LLPs? Because LLP is considered as partnership. तो इसमें what is the logic of omitting LLPs?
दाई बनते हैं सर. अब आपने 2 कहे, 2 देना है और क्या? 2 नहीं सर, 2 से कम में तो बात नहीं बनेगी बिल्कुल सर.
सर प्लीज पुट योरसेल्फ ऑन अ म्यूट मोड. 2 से कम में बात नहीं बनेगी, सबको पता लग गया सर. Sir, your question is valid, but sorry, I am not aware about the logic. I have not gone through the same. If anyone has any view, feel free to share. Why the LLPs are restricted in this?
Because they say partnership includes LLP. Definition में the partnership includes LLP. But इसके अंदर LLP को उन्होंने specifically omit कर दिया.
Viru, do you want to say something on this? Or anyone else? Yeah.
Sir, I think by the Supreme Court judgment which you had shared, wherein for the purpose of profession, they had deemed that company shall not be deemed as a profession. So somewhere they are ignoring the artificial structures. LLP and private limited, both are artificial persons. So maybe on those lines, they are trying to bypass.
But in the definition of partnership, say partnership includes LLP.
Agreed, sir. Agreed. So I guess for the applicability of income tax provisions, for the ease of it, they have mentioned the definition. But for making the benefit of 44AD available to the public, they want to ignore the artificial person logic.
Or maybe because it is to be audited under any other law.
Not necessary, sir, because if the LLP turnover is less than 40 lakhs and capital less than 25 lakhs, then in that case, it is not to be audited even under the LLP Act.
मुझे भी लॉजिक इसका समझ में नहीं आ रहा.
लॉजिक सर ये हो सकता है कि एलएलपी इज रिलेट लाइक इट इज अ कॉर्पोरेट स्ट्रक्चर, और कॉर्पोरेट स्ट्रक्चर क्योंकि कंपनी में के केस में तो ऐसा है कि उसे बुक्स ऑफ अकाउंट्स मेंटेन करनी है. इट इज मैंडेटेड अंडर कंपनीज एक्ट. सो और कहीं ना कहीं एलएलपी इज क्लोजली रिलेटेड टू कंपनीज एक्ट और कॉर्पोरेटाइजेशन, तो उन्होंने उस तरीके से उसको
सर एलएलपी एक्ट तो सेपरेट है बिल्कुल
नहीं, मतलब रिलेटेड है, थोड़ा सा कॉर्पोरेटाइजेशन है उसमें.
we can discuss it later, but it was just in my mind.
Yeah. So now let me proceed on AD, and then we can stop for questions. So these are again, very normal provisions about any presumptive taxation. 4 is important. 4 says where an eligible SSC declares profit for any previous year in accordance with the provisions of this section, and he declares profit for any of the 5 assessment year relevant to the previous year succeeding such previous year, not in accordance with the provision of subsection 1, that is 8% or 6%, whatever is applicable, shall not be eligible to claim the benefit of the provision of this section for 5 assessment years subsequent to the assessment year. The 5-year bandwidth was not there in case of 44ADA. So 44ADA, you can opt in 1 year, then not opt in another year, then again opt in 3rd year. But as far as 44AD is concerned, subsection 4 very clearly says, if you have opted in the current year, and if you decided not to opt in the 2nd year, then 2 plus 5, which would be mean, we would be somewhere on the 7th year, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah. So till 7th year, I cannot come back to 44AD. But this provision was not there in ADA. So that is the advantage in ADA. Secondly, if any, you want to put money in some deductions under 80C or other sections, you can do that, but it is not allowed under 44AD. Notwithstanding anything contained in the foregoing provision of this section, an eligible assessee to whom the provision of subsection 4 are applicable and whose total income exceeds the maximum amount which is not chargeable to income tax shall be required to keep and maintain such books of accounts and other document as required under subsection 2 of section 44AA. I think this was on 44AD. Now we can have Q&A. I will try my best.
गौरव जी एक चीज स्पेसिफाई कर दीजिएगा बिकॉज काफी प्रोफेशनल को कंफ्यूजन है दैट इन द केस ऑफ ए प्रोफेशनल the remuneration to the partners can be deducted after 44ADA calculation, whereas in the case of 44AD, the remuneration is not deductible further.
Come again, sir. Sorry, I'm not clear on the question.
In a professional, the remuneration to the partners, after you arrive at the 50%, the partner's remuneration is eligible under business and professional in the profession. But in the case of business, after you arrive at 6%, 8%, then the partner remuneration cannot be further deducted.
In AD, you are saying remuneration is not allowed. Under ADA, you are saying it is allowed.
It is allowed.
Okay.
This is a confusion in the minds of most of the professionals.
But why you are saying this, sir?
Sir, provision देखो जरा. इसमें 28 to 43C तक है, उसमें 28 to 38 तक है सिर्फ. Remuneration वगैरह है वो कवर नहीं होती ना उसमें.
But sir, even in 44AD, the overriding clause is exactly same. And even, sorry, sir.
So let me go back to any deduction allowable under the provision of section 30 to 38 shall for the purpose of subsection 1 be deemed to have been already given full effect. So it is up to 38, correct? And then it says, notwithstanding anything contained in the foregoing provision of this section, so let me go to subsection 1. Just says, notwithstanding anything contained in section 28 to 43C, in case of an assessee being an individual or partnership firm. Sir, it starts with notwithstanding anything contained in section 28 to 43C. So I don't think partner remuneration would be allowed.
Agreed, sir.
Okay. Any other question? So let me go to.
So far as applicability of tax audit is concerned, for the limits, I had few scenarios to discuss.
Please.
Sir, suppose it the turnover. So right now I'm only discussing for 44AD. Suppose it the turnover is less than 1 crore. And this is the first year of business. And the business profit we are declaring is less than 6% or 8%. And the maximum amount not chargeable to tax say exceed हो रही है मेरी income.
ठीक है.
So in this scenario, is tax audit applicable upon me? As far as I read it, if I just read the clauses, if my turnover is less than 1 crore, I get out of clause A. And what clause E says, it refers to 44AD 4. And 4 says that if in preceding previous year you had opted for 44AD and thereafter you violate it, then thereafter for 5 years you will have to follow 44AB. So technically speaking, if this is the first year of business and I'm disclosing profit less than 6 or 8%, 4484 also does not apply upon me. Henceforth, 44AB E does not apply. So therefore, there is no provision in 44AB under which I will have to get my tax audited.
No. See, Abhiru, we need to read previous year in line with what is given in subsection 1.
Right.
So subsection 1 talks about the previous year means current year.
No, let us just read subsection 4 for once. It says wherein eligible assessee declares profit for any previous year in accordance with the provision of this section, and he declares profit for any of the 5 assessment years relevant to the previous year succeeding such previous year, not in accordance with subsection 1. Then he shall not be eligible to claim the benefit of the provision for 5 years subsequent. आगे जो भी लिखा है. Meaning whereby there should have been at least 1 year elapsed in which 44AD was being complied with. And thereafter, if you do not comply, then subsection 4 comes into play.
अभिरूप जी ऐसा नहीं है, ऐसा नहीं है. Gaurav ji, can I explain?
Yeah, sir, please.
You see, once you have opted, even if it is the first year or second year, पहले साल में ऑडिट कराया, सेकंड ईयर में ऑडिट कराया, थर्ड ईयर में जाके आपने पहला साल है आपका जब आपने 44AD अडॉप्ट कर लिया, इसके बाद अगले 5 साल आप कर सकते हैं. बट आपने क्योंकि पहले 2 साल में ऑडिट करा लिया तो आपको अगले 5 साल तक आपको 44AD की प्रोविजन एप्लीकेबल नहीं है. बट व्हेन इट इज अ स्टार्ट ऑफ ए बिजनेस, then that starting business shall be covered under subsection 1. Subsection 4 तो बाद में आएगा.
Sir, exactly my point. It will be covered under 1, but 44AB की जो clauses हैं, उसमें 44AD 1 का कोई reference नहीं है. उसमें 44AD 4 का reference है. वहाँ पे 1 का reference होता, then there is no issue with that. कि चलो ठीक है मेरा 1 से बाहर हो गया. But over there, it refers only to 4484 in clause E.
Correct. What you are saying does make a sense.
Yeah. I think Abhirup, I agree with what you're saying. I guess
the language what you are saying does make a sense. It clearly says he shall not be eligible to claim the benefit of the provision of the section for 5 assessment years subsequent to the assessment year, relevant to the previous year in which the profit has been declared in accordance with the provision of subsection 1. But I would slightly put more brain on this, and maybe in the next presentation which we'll do on a tax audit, I will try to come up with more clarity.
Sure. Actually, Gauravji, the language has been changed after 1416. So that is why the new provisions read as the way Abhirup is explaining. That is what I believe.
I agree. What Abhirup is saying, it makes sense. But I think I have not, put a thought to it. The language is saying, what Abhirup is saying, the reading of the law is saying the same thing. But I just need to, apply my mind once again on it.
So basically, the query that I have, the additional query that I have, irrespective of the fact whether it is the first year or not. So unless you opt in once into 44AD and opt out, you will not be liable to tax audit through 4484. Is that right?
No.
Opt in तो देखो क्या होता है कि it is a mandatory provision. So if let's say except the first year, let's say I'm in my any year of business, first, second or third, I do not have an option कि यार मैं इसको क्या करूं. मतलब if I'm not opting.
No, basically the question that I'm asking is, suppose it is not the first year, it is second or third year, okay? And in the third year, suppose I have a turnover less than 2 crores and I have profits less than 8%. Do I need to get myself tax audited?
Of course, you will have to get yourself audited, but उसके अंदर ये वो जो आपकी deeming provision में cover हो जाता है. It is not specific covered because it is not based on turnover.
No, but I will reach 44AB through which clause? That is what I'm asking.
So in my opinion, if you are disclosing turnover less than 2 crores and this is not the first year, then in that case you have to get yourself audited under clause E if your total income exceeds maximum amount not chargeable to tax.
Under clause E.
E.
But how? Because E, like you said, Abhirup, E is linked to the
4.
is linked to 4 and 5.
Yeah,
Is
so
linked to
since
4 and 5.
this is your second year of business, subsection 4 will come into play. Because in the first year you had disclosed your profits in accordance with subsection 1, and 4 says that if now you are wanting to disclose it otherwise.
So I'm saying if I have not done it in the past, I have not used 4481 in the past.
No, so that is what sir is trying to explain, Gauravji is trying to explain, that if you have started your business, it is ipso facto that you will fall under 4481. Don't have any option for that. If you're disclosing profits less than that, then you are continuing from my query only. That it is the first year.
Yes, that is what I'm saying, because the language has changed in the section. If you read the erstwhile 44AD, the language was different.
Correct.
That did not have this 4 and 5 the way it is worded now. The previous language did clearly mention that if you declare a profit, the language was similar to 44ADA, where it clearly said that if you declared a profit less than the threshold profit mentioned.
So just to interrupt you over here, if we just look at the first proviso, rather the second proviso, the first proviso, usme the word user 4481. If your turnover is between 1 to 2 crores and your cash receipts and cash payments are more than 5%, then you will be hit by the first proviso and you will have to get yourself audited under clause A. But at the same time, if the cash receipts and cash payments are less than 5%, then clause A won't be applicable. And if what we are interpreting that subsection 4 does not link directly with 1, and since we were not required to fall under subsection 1, then clause E will also not hit.
Right. So in that case, you just go out of tax audit even if you have less than 8%, right?
Yeah, Rishi. So basically, to summarize and to put it in a very simple format without complicating it. So we have in 44 AB, we have two sections. Basically, one is clause A, which is a generic, which gives the limit of 1 crore and a 10 crore. Correct. Then we have, point number D, which talks about, that if you are not in 44AD, you will come to 44AB. So at the outset, if I want to declare profit less than what is mentioned in 44AD, that is, if I want to declare profit less than 8%, I can do that. And, I may need to get audit or I may need not get the audit. So let's take a scenario that I have started a business and I have not opted for 44AD in the year 1. I am declaring my profit less than 8%. Then in such a case, being the first year, the question comes whether tax audit is applicable on me or not. I think that is the point which we need to check and come back to you. Now, it is the second year. In second year, let's say again, I want to declare profit less than 8%. And what is my turnover? If my turnover is less than 1 crore, then I'm not falling under clause A. And if my turnover is up to, from 1 crore to 10 crore, depending upon my...
Suppose my turnover is 1.5 crores, between 1 and 2.
If it is between 1 and 2, and I'm not opting for the tax audit, probably I think if I'm not falling under clause 4, then tax audit should not be applicable.
Right. Yeah, that is the view. I mean, that is my view.
44ADA first assume that in some year, you have opted for 8%, and then now you are not opting for 8%, then it mandates audit. This is what the subsection 4 is saying. But if in the previous years, I am declaring less profit and my that electronic payment or over the payment is, coming to a bank, then I will go to a 10 crore threshold from 1 crore to 10 crore and I will not fall under clause A. Means tax audit is not applicable on me under clause A. As far as clause E is concerned, I need to come to it through 44AD, and 44AD says where an eligible assessee declares profit for any previous year in accordance with the provisions of this section, and he declares profit for any of the 5 assessment year. Means in the previous years, if I have opted for it at least once, and then from that year till next 5 years, if I am not opting for 44AD, then I will go to clause E. So
Agreed.
where,
Agreed.
so where I have not opted for 44AD, I will be out from the first line, which says where an eligible SEC declares profit for any previous year. So being I have not opted for 44AD as per the provision for any previous year, the rest section would not be applicable on me because it starts with and. So both the condition must be satisfied in order to fall with subsection 4. That is the first condition. I must have opted for 44AD in any of the previous year. And then in next 5 years, if I am not falling, not declaring profit as per 8% or 6%, then only I'm getting hit by subsection 4. This is what the interpretation is coming out.
Agreed, Gaurav.
Agreed,
Agreed.
sir.
That's why I believe the first year question also gets automatically answered with this interpretation.
Yeah, correct. Because in the first year, in the any previous years, I have not opted for 44AD, so I will not fall under clause 4.
Right. Yeah,
But,
that is good.
just one exception to what you said, sir. If the turnover is between 1 to 2 crores, then in that case, this conclusion will hold true only if my total receipts are more than 95% from bank, and likewise for the payment.
Correct.
Yeah, agreed.
Sir, not only receipts, even expenditure.
Yeah.
Yes, sir, even expenditure.
The word is expenditure, not payment. So if a withdrawal of a partner is more, it will not affect it.
So basically, 44ADA 4 is applicable when at least I have claimed a 44AD benefit of 44AD at least in my any of the previous year, and from that previous year I am standing in the bandwidth of 5 years.
Yes.
So if I have claimed let's say profit 44AD I have claimed in the second year, then for next 5 years, that is the third year, fourth year, fifth year and the 6th year, if I decided to move out from 44AD, then only I'm getting hit by subclause 4, subsection 4. But whereas from year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, whatever I have not opted for 44AD, I am declaring less profit and my turnover is less than 5 crore, then I will see the clause A, and clause A says if my electronic payment is less than 5%, my electronic receipt is less than 5%. In such a case, turnover would be seen as the 10 crore, which means I'm not getting hit by 44AD subsection 4. I'm not getting hit by 44AB subclause A, and thus tax audit is not applicable on me.
Absolutely. Yeah. Agreed.
Sir, now
Thanks,
there is
thanks.
one more scenario. Supposedly, my turnover is more than 2 crores and between 10 crores. And the clause A condition I'm satisfying that cash receipts and payments are less than 5%.
2 से 10 में तो ADA लगेगा ही नहीं ना, AD लगेगा ही नहीं.
Correct. AD लगेगा नहीं. So in that case, I have the leeway to disclose my profit even 1%, or I can also report a loss. There is no tax audit upon me.
Correct. If my gross receipts or total turnover is more than 2 crore, then AD is not applicable.
Correct.
And I will be evaluated only as per clause A. And clause A says if my electronic receipt is less than 5% and my electronic payments are less than 5%, then the threshold to get covered under 44 AB clause A would be 10 crores. It is not linking it to my profit, my percentage of profit, which I want to declare. In such a case, tax audit would not be applicable, but books to maintain करनी पड़ेंगी, to justify करनी पड़ेंगे. Tax audit से बचेंगे बस.
Sir, problem ultimately lie वहाँ करती है where the assessee has lost and there is an assumption कि due date तो October में है. At that time when we read the clauses उसमें बाहर निकले, then there's for a problem कि loss will get lapsed. So actually the due date is 31st of July and the return should be filed on or before the due date.
Correct.
सर एक इश्यू और है, अगर आपने गलत ऑडिट भी कर दिया कि ये सोच के कि डेट एक्सटेंड हो जाएगी तो डेट एक्सटेंड नहीं मानी जाएगी.
Correct.
अगर गलत प्रिजम्पशन में आपने कर दिया ऑडिट तो द लॉ सेज द डेट विल नॉट बी ट्रीटेड एज एक्सटेंडेड.
MK sir का question है, if a person has never opted for 44AD having turnover less than 1 crore and declaring loss or profit less than 6%, is audit applicable? Sir, we just discussed audit would not be applicable.
सर लॉस के केस में इज अ डिफरेंट प्रोविजन बिकॉज उसकी बाकी अदर इनकम is not taxable under threshold limit. Loss में तो वैसे भी cover नहीं होगा.
So इसमें one more thing. Suppose in the first year my turnover was 50 lakh rupees and I disclose my profit as 10%. So I fulfilled 4481 in the first year. But in the second year, my turnover jumped to 3 crore rupees and I'm satisfying the clause A conditions. Then will I be called to be falling under subsection 4 in the second year?
No, the limited 2 crore hai. So in such a case, see, we have a possibility of performance also. If 44AD is not applicable on me, how can subsection 4 of 44AD can become applicable?
Yeah.
So in my view, if your turnover is more than 2 crores, then the whole 44AD is not applicable. And thus subsection 4 of 44AD should also not be applicable.
Yeah.
Sir, please read those definitions at eligible assessee.
Sir,
You have to be eligible for the turnover purposes.
I would request to read the definitions once for that. The eligible assessee definition nowhere talks about the limit. It is the eligible business definition which talks about the limit. The eligible assessee is simply individuals that you have, then whatever deduction it says about.
Partnership firm, not LLPs and corporates.
Correct. Now, the limit of 2 crores is on eligible business. So like you said, Gaurav sir, that subsection 1 won't apply since I'm not eligible business, because subsection 1 says that in case an eligible assessee engage in an eligible business. So therefore, I am very much out of subsection 1. But when I read subsection 4, there is no mention of the term eligible business. It says when an eligible assessee declares profit for any previous year in accordance with the provisions of this section and declares profit for any of the 5 assessment years relevant to the previous year not in accordance with subsection 1, he shall not be eligible to claim the provisions of 5 assessment years.
Correct. See, not in accordance with subsection 1 may, again there are 2 conditions, eligible assessee and eligible business.
Eligible business, correct.
So if your business is same, in my humble opinion, this subsection 1 would be applicable if you satisfy all the conditions. If we are not satisfying the conditions, if my eligible business, which is under the question, if the turnover of that eligible business is more than 2 crore,
right,
then subsection 1 is not applicable on me. And if subsection 1 is not applicable on me, subsection 4 would also, because 44AD is basically qua business. So, in my humble view, I would not like to read it separately. I need to see it eternity. Just that because I've opted once it 44AD,
right,
does it become applicable on all the turnovers thereafter? I think that cannot be the intention. The intention is to limit it to 2 crores only.
correct.
So if my turnover is more than 2 crore, then of that eligible business, then I think in my view, 44AD in the entirety is not applicable.
Agreed.
I think we need to limit our discussion, maybe next couple of questions more. And so
अगर गौरव जी लर्निंग बहुत हो रही है,
लर्निंग तो बहुत हो रही है,
लर्निंग तो बहुत हो रही है.
I thought yesterday someone asked me, मैंने ना Zoom meeting में 1 hour का डाला था ये, तो somebody asked me कि गौरव 1 hour तक discussion चलेगा. I said no, half an hour, 40-minute maximum. And I told the same thing to my kids. We need to go somewhere, and I would get free by maximum 12 or 12:30. I never expected it would go to. अच्छा time का भी पता नहीं लग रहा है. It's 1. I just noticed it become 1:15. So discussion is very interesting.
Oh यार sorry आपको delay कर दिया, फटाफट.
नहीं sir, I am enjoying. उनको पार्टी वार्टी करा देंगे बच्चों को. We'll compensate for the late. So now let me. Tarun Mittal ji is asking. If we file ITR under section 44AD, ITR 4, then in next 2 years, tax audit is conducted due to sale above 1 crore and profit. I think we have already discussed this. So if let's do one thing. If any one of you has any question, please unmute yourself and ask. We will take 2 questions more. Rahul, you want to say something? Ritun also joined. Ritun, you have some question? Yes,
Sir,
Rahul.
I am having the question like due to some government tender requirement, SSC wants to get voluntary audit under 44AB. So which clause should be applicable as the audit report is mandatory in some government tenders?
नहीं, ऑडिट तो देखो अगर एक्ट में रिक्वायर्ड नहीं है तो आप इनकम टैक्स में तो नहीं कर सकते उसको इन जनरल देखना पड़ेगा टैक्स ऑडिट के लिए तो टैक्स ऑडिट के जो रिक्वायरमेंट है वो थ्रेशोल्ड्स पूरी होनी चाहिए
But sir, they ask for the form 3CB and 3CD, whichever is applicable, as may be the case.
उनको बोलो not applicable. Not applicable.
Government people does not understand.
राहुल इस पे ना इंस्टीट्यूट की कुछ क्लैरिफिकेशन है I remember last year also same question came. I was discussing with someone ki the client needs to get the books audited, but it was not under the act, rather some tender requirement. So there is some clarification from ICAI on this ki what member can do in such a situation.
You cannot give a tax audit.
Legally we cannot do, sir, but then they disqualify the participant actually.
नहीं, आप उसमें टैक्स ऑडिट रिपोर्ट नहीं दे सकते, ऑडिट रिपोर्ट दे सकते हो.
I do agree, sir, but there is a specific column form 3CD has to be attached.
वो क्लाइंट को समझाना पड़ेगा जिसने टेंडर इशू करा. आई एम सेइंग जस्ट चेक इंस्टीट्यूट गाइडेंस ऑन दिस.
2014 एडिशन सर.
नहीं टैक्स ऑडिट के नहीं, प्रोफेशनल एथिक्स पे कुछ ना कुछ होगा. इस पे कुछ FAQs होंगे प्रोफेशनल एथिक्स पे, वहां पे होगा.
ओके सर, थैंक यू.
Any second and the last question, if we can have quickly, if anyone is there. Ritun, are you there? Are you still there? I think we are done. So thanks are done to all of you for joining in today's discussion. I think if you really ask me, I think it went superbly well. I never expected for this duration and this quality of content. So आप सब जुड़ते रहे, we'll do it again and we'll learn more together, and I will again try to coordinate everything. So see you soon.
Can I give you a vote of thanks? Really excellent. It is an initiative that you have taken, and this is a very learning experience. Thank you so very much, and please say sorry from our side to your kids for delaying you, and you have a great time with them. Thank you so very much. Thank you.
Discussion is available on my YouTube channel. If any one of you wants to watch it again या share करना हो किसी और के लिए भी, तो YouTube channel पे link है. I would be sending you email. On that email you will find a presentation, maybe by tomorrow, presentation and the link to watch it again. Thank you.
आप वो case law जो mention करे थे,
मैं बिल्कुल.
thank you sir. Thank you so very much.
Thank you sir. Thanks again to